Wow, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for joining us on this weekend's edition of Viewpoint on DBS Television. Of course, it is always one of your favorite evening debate program being brought to you from 6:30 p.m. You could equally watch us live on Facebook. In tonight's edition, we are going to be talking about empowering the young girls or the young boys, and of course, to talk about this, we are having a young lady with us here in the studio. She is the founder of Pranti Global, and by name she is Pranti Nwela Tene Lambi. She'll be accompanied by Mange Venashu. So stay tuned. Good evening to you, Nwela, and thank you very much for being part of us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you, Mange Venashu. So should I wish you a happy weekend, or what do I tell you? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening to our viewers. You know, when we come to the weekend, we feel this kind of, you feel that you are free. At least the week has gone by, and permit me, as usual, greet our viewers. Especially, I'm thinking of this time another friend. I have no option, Vanessa, to think of those those with whom we grew up together. I'm thinking of one Mark Kumeyele. He is in Jakiri.
All right.
Yes.
In the northwest region of Cameroon.
Exactly.
And special greetings goes also to those watching us from the southwest. I got some reactions yesterday from those watching us from that part of the country. Viewpoint is a debate program divided into two parts. It has to do with the questions, and the second part has to do with the debate. So coming up now, let us take the first part. Once more, you are welcome back. In our first question, lack of entrepreneurial skills among young people in Cameroon, a source of underdevelopment. Pranti, what do you think about that? Is it a source of underdevelopment? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Mange Venashus, your point of view?
Yes, Vanessa, I share the same opinion.
Yes. And is there any way out of the situation? Mange Venashus?
Given the way things are, no way out. No.
Pranti?
I think there's a way out.
Yes. Coming up next, let us have the debate. Lack of entrepreneurial skills among young people in Cameroon, a source of underdevelopment. Pranti, you think that yes, it is a reason, or it is the reason why we are not developed, or we are still a developing country, because youth are not engaged in activities that will permit them to bring out their entrepreneurial skills or to set up their own business?
Well, permit me say, some of us youths are lazy. We depend so much on the government. Meanwhile, we have skills of our own, which I think if we invest in them or cultivate them, it's going to bring more income into the country, thereby rendering us developed. But then we keep depending on the government, like, I want to go to ENS, I want to go to NZ, I want to write concurse so that I'll have a stable salary from the government. Meanwhile, for example, if you're good with hairdressing per se, you can open up a business place and even employ others. If one person does that, he can employ 5. What if all of us youths do the same thing? I mean, we are going to increase the country's
income.
Yeah.
So you think that it's because they lack the skills?
Not lack of skills. They don't lack the skills. They are lazy.
They are lazy. You think it's because out of laziness?
Out of laziness, and they depend so much on the government.
So don't you think that the economic situation of the country as well is a stumbling block, or is setting them back not to actually set up their own enterprises?
Not really, because I don't believe every aspect in the economy is affected by the economic crisis or something. I don't think every aspect, like for example what I do, let's say showbiz, it's affected, but it's not really affected. because every part is affected, but not really affected. Like, okay, for example, I'm launching Parents Global in 2 days, and the economic crisis. I was normally supposed to launch in Bamenda and Douala. I could not launch in Bamenda. Okay, Douala is fine. Let's launch in Douala. It's not stopping me. I'll have to launch, and if I'm launching, there are people who have to do this. There's somebody that will do this. They get paid for it. It's keeping them busy. But then if you just sit and say the economic crisis, like, I'm not going to school because there's crisis, Amber said I should not go to school. I mean,
no, because I believe that a lot of these youths do have the talent.
They do,
but they lack the resources. They lack the means to actually start up something. Or will you tell me that with 10,000 francs you can start something?
With 10,000 you can start something.
All right, Dominican, motivational speaker. Thank you very much for your viewpoint. We are still together while we get the point of view of Manga and Ashes. Manga, you equally think that the lack of entrepreneurial skills among youth in Cameroon is the reason why we are underdeveloped?
Yes, Vanessa, when we talk about this issue of underdevelopment in the country, let's look at it from the source. For Cameroon to be developed, you need to invest to reap the profit. When you look at it, you see that if we begin from our educational sector, you see the educational sector is not well oriented towards that. Because when you look at the percentage of those who go to school in Cameroon, those who graduate from school in Cameroon, a majority graduate from grammar school. And from grammar school, you can graduate with a PhD in history, with a PhD in chemistry, PhD in geography. You may contribute a little. Whereas if you graduate just with A-levels from a technical school, I think you have the entrepreneurial skills that you can become self-employed, and you keep on, like she's saying, extending from you to another person, employing another person. But the way our educational system is structured is, we feel that, I always say, when I was in school, those who had to go to government schools were those who were intelligent. Those of us who were dull.
Back in those days.
Yes, those of us who were dull, who could not pass in list A, we were forced to go maybe to SAR, SM, and to other schools. Now, those who were instead intelligent went to grammar schools, and from grammar schools you graduate to something else, which is not, productive as such, because you will come out with you are a doctor in this, you have a master's degree in this. How is that master's degree being used to develop the country? Whereas a simple, I used to take a sample of my friend. A simple technician who graduated from SAR SM after year 2, start producing shutters, door frames, start roofing houses. That is a step towards development. Now, we are talking about the all these bottlenecks, administrative bottlenecks that come up with setting up an enterprise in Cameroon. We know that in Cameroon, when you just think of an enterprise, 1, taxes. Just the taxes discourages you. 2, the issue of, you have to run from this ministry, you have to run from this office to this office, and as you are going into each office, it needs a document with stamps and all the movement around, and going into these offices, your files are not being processed as such. You may need to see, when we say see in a Cameroonian context, we know what seeing means. You may need to see 1 or 2 persons so that your files may go through. If not, you may wait for the next 1 or 2 months. So I think that besides the idea of poor orientation in our education, we have this concept of the administration does not facilitate, does not help the young people to finally settle. That is why you see most of us, or most of the young people, they see greener pastures out of the country, not in the country. And in that context, you see the knowledge that they have, they instead help in developing foreign countries than developing back home. That is why I was listening to the number of those who came back from the US the other day. They were talking of civil servants, they were talking of teachers, they were talking of doctors who escaped to the US. And when they go there, they talk about patient-doctor relationship in US. It is, very high. Whereas these are doctors who left Cameroon. If they were back in Cameroon, it would change, at least our health situation in the country. So I think that economic condition of the country is pushing the young people also. It is not necessarily the lack of skills as such, but then other things that could enable them set up their entrepreneurial, thought or ideas, you hamper them from realizing their dream. Because when you tell a young man that you can become self-employed, he does not see that as
he
something.
Doesn't see the possibilities.
Something that he can realize. She was saying something about the idea that some of us think that you must get into a government. There's this thing they call the matricle syndrome. We just believe that immediately you are graduating, the first thing you are looking for is a matricle.
Right.
Once you have a matricle, you are fine. But then experience has proven that in any economy that has succeeded, it has always been pushed, or it has been from the private sector. It has hardly been from the government sector. In developed economies, people don't get into the government sector as such. People prefer to go into the private sector because in the private sector, I negotiate my salary with my employer. In government, as a civil servant, once you are in category A1, A2, A3, there is a salary level that you cannot go beyond. That is why in those days of Ahijo, when a civil servant bought a car, we need to know how you bought a car. Because we know your salary. For how long have you worked to buy a salary, to buy a car for 16 million? What have you saved? What is your salary? For how long? But in Cameroon today, that is why everybody looks at the civil service as a way out. Because in Cameroon today, besides your salary, there are other things that come in, and you end up just after 2-3 years, you see somebody riding in a car. Whereas in those days, you could work for 10 years without being even able to buy a car. But in the private sector, you can, because you negotiate your salary directly with your employer. So that's why I think that these entrepreneurial skills in Cameroon, they force, or they lack. Yes, they force these young people to go outside, and our country remain underdeveloped back home. Yes, Vanessa.
Thank you also, Mangevela Shoes, for your contribution. So, Pranti, I would like to know, from your observation, is it not that a lot of youths now are gradually shifting from the conventional world studies and going more for professionalism to be able to self-employ themselves or empower themselves?
I agree. Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
All right.
Because when they have the A levels and you ask a youth like, what do you want to do? Or where do you want to study? I want to go to HICM, I want to go to HITL, I want to go to Polytechnic. I mean, you hardly hear a student say, I want to go to the University of Bamenda to go under the faculty. Because most of the youth who went under the faculty are jobless today. Most of them, like 60%. So I see that's why most of them want to go into the private sector, like he rightly said. And probably that is why a lot now prefer to go for vocational centers and acquire the skills rather than going to study history in the university. That leads us to the second question. Is there a way out of the situation? Prandi, you think that there is a way out. So what are some of those things that could make these youths empower themselves or develop themselves in order to develop Cameroon as well? Well, first things first, it's a good idea to go to a professional school. I buy the idea. Why? Because some youths nowadays, they don't like being under people. They don't want to have that feeling. So them going to a professional school, we want to make them want to invest and have their own thing and be the boss. That's one way they can increase the income of the country. Another way is skills. If you look at the Cameroonian youth today, they have a lot of skills. You see a young girl, she makes a carpet out of threads. She does, like, there's a lot of handwork. Like you see a young girl
they're able to use the natural resources around to come up with finished products.
Yeah. Doing wigs, you see them doing that.
They use tires to make tables and
exactly. So I just feel like if they put a little bit more effort, just a little bit, they will be fine. Not necessarily to depend on the government, because it's not all the time that the government will see to our needs.
All right. So, Pranti, you are the founder of Pranti Global. and you are there to empower the young girls and the young boys to be financially independent, or to be stable financially. So you, first of all, how did you get to this level, and how are you working towards making these youths independent?
Okay, these youths, I have about 15 of them that I started up with. Okay, so what do? They serve as brand ambassadors for companies. How? As models. Like, for example, let's take a company and
DBS television.
Okay, DBS television. Now, how does that model earn from DBS TV? Okay, for example, I'm a model. I will need to do something creative enough to attract DBS to want to work with me and use me as their brand ambassador. And you're not going to use me as your brand ambassador for free. No, you pay me, but I need to give you that impression.
If you don't show us probably the product or what we are buying, that is by paying you, I don't see how we'll be able to employ your services.
That's why I'm there.
All right.
I train them in such a way that when they go before the companies, you just give them what they want. Like, for example, if DBS needs this particular thing, okay, DBS is a TV station. Understand? Do something that DBS will want you to work with them. You cannot go and do something that a different company, like you're doing something with DBS, but another company is looking for your services. Yeah, do something that DBS is going to want you. That's why when I'm training them to be creative. It's all about creativity, because you not just sit and it will happen. You need to be creative. You need to think out of the box. The world now is social media. There are a lot of ideas, so they think out of the box. When you think out of the box, ideas flow, and that's how.
Looking at you, you're young enough and probably you should be stable financially and independent. So how did you start up? That might be a motivation to so many youths watching us at this particular moment.
Well, how did I start? I started the project Parenting Global about 4 years ago. My parents never knew about it, and my parents were like, go to school, graduate, and you have a job. Like right now, I'm doing accounting in the University of Bamenda. And they were like, okay, when you leave the advanced level, you go to school, you have your degree. If you want to do masters, you do PhD, you become a teacher, or you go to ENS and say that's the normal. But then I had this project in mind, and I was scared to tell my parents, like, if I tell them, they'll refuse. Modeling again, they'll refuse. And I just started writing, drawing the program, having ideas and putting them down. And finally, when I had my advanced level, because here in Cameroon, believe that when you have an advanced level, you have a little bit of freedom. So when I had my advanced level, I said, no, let me just present to my parents. Maybe they will
accept
they'll buy the idea. Surprisingly, they bought the idea and invested in it.
All right.
And this is where we are today.
Okay. Thank you very much for that initiative, and probably hope that so many other youths would get empowered. Mange Venashus, you rather think that there is no way out? Looking at all these opportunities, you think there is no way out still?
Vanessa, I'm sorry, that's the way I'm thinking, because given the political situation of this country, they keep telling us that the youths are the future leaders of tomorrow. And it would appear that tomorrow is far from coming, because tomorrow has never come. We grew up with this notion of youths are future leaders of tomorrow. Today they are still telling us that youths are future leaders of tomorrow. Tomorrow they will still be future leaders of another tomorrow. And you see, those we made them, deciding in the country are there, deciding. The youths are growing from youth to adult. With them, they are still there. So in as much as the political situation of the country doesn't change, we will end up with these concepts in our mind, and they don't give us, the opportunity to realize them. Because I believe that if the political situation of this country were to change, if we were to bring in youths into within the decided the chamber where decisions are taken, I believe that it would like encourage some of the young people to believe that I can venture into an enterprise like she is saying and become self-independent. But then we have structured the country that the young people should remain dependent. Vanessa, it is shocking to understand that we are still in a country where you still find young people of 25, 30 still living with their parents, still depending on their parents for their livelihood. Whereas their age mates in other countries are already, selling big in the economic life of their country. But we are in a country where we still depend. In fact, you are not even able to be on your own because of the way things are in the country. So I think that if the political situation of Cameroon could change, the youth may have an encouragement to go on. Another issue is the issue of the crisis that we've had in this country for practically 4 years and running. When we talk of crisis, it's not necessarily the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. Cameroon has been plagued by the Boko Haram crisis for quite some time now. And if you need to see the impact of this crisis on the economic life of the country, when the Anglophone crisis came and added to the Boko Haram threat up north, you see, just about 2 years, the government of Cameroon declared these regions as economically, destressed areas that economic activities cannot even function, to a level where the government decided to suspend all taxes in these areas to see if we could encourage economic activities there. Yet
economic investors,
nothing is going on. So in as much as the crisis that we have in this country, they are not handled on time, the economic situation of the country cannot improve. And if it cannot improve, young people cannot have they cannot have that you call it that urge, that eagerness to get into this entrepreneurial world. Take for example a young man in the northwest or southwest regions who wanted to engage into business. Given the way things are, I don't even know, I think if there are even young people out there again, because they are either running away, or they are in the bushes. How would you have the time to even concentrate and sit and think business? And even you think business, if you don't have enough capital that you can relocate from the northwest and southwest region, your very brilliant ideas will remain as concepts because you cannot put them into practice. So I think that in as much as we are talking about seeing how to improve it's good if we improve the economic situation of the country, but then the crisis that we have in the country, they are they're like a barrier, for these economic projects to take off. But I would rather think that when you listen to initiatives like what Brandy Nuela is promoting, I think that it is a laudable initiative because it's just to let the young people know that if a young lady as she is can venture into something, and if she can succeed, then nothing blocks me, nothing blocks him, nothing blocks you from succeeding. Because we need to walk past this fear that we think that I will fail. Somebody said, if you don't fail, you don't understand
having the idea that you need millions to start something.
Of course. Yes, they come with the fear. Yes, that fear in you that you just think that no,
you
the
need a
little
very
that I have,
huge amount of capital to set up something.
To start up. I think it's high time we decided to venture into the unknown as such, and then with such coachings that could come from people like her, people from other organizations or associations.
A lot of youth are coming up to empower themselves and others.
Yes, and in that case, we'll be able to help the young Camerooners to realize that we can do something. Vanessa was discussing with a friend. He's out of the country, Nigeria, and he was telling us that in Nigeria, people don't go to school for certificates. No.
Right.
Somebody just gets into the university, study, even at the end of the year, even if he does not validate the course, even if he does not write the end of year exam, he has acquired the knowledge and he goes out, put the knowledge into practice. It is not much of the certificate, because when you take the paper remains, that paper can never become anything useful to you. It is just an attestation that shows that you have acquired the knowledge. But then what they need much is you apply the knowledge you have acquired in class, apply it, not to boast that I have a degree. A degree has nothing to do. So I think that we should learn to know that the knowledge we have, let us try to put it into practice. Because if she had the ideas that she wanted to do something and was afraid that no, I have to, then she would still be, procrastinating and time going on.
Well, Mangavena, I believe that a lot of youth have understood that now like these degrees do not pay you.
Of course.
Degrees do fit you.
Of course,
you need to develop some skills, a handwork or something else.
A trade, you need a trade at least.
Yes, to survive. Thank you very much, Mangavena, for your contributions. Pranti, you'll be launching a Pranti Global on the 25th, that is Sunday, and here in Douala. So, what are some of those activities and who are those invited?
We have activities like fashion runway. We have artistic performances from artists like Tizi Panchak, Black Fame, Frankish, and Kiko. Kiko and Tizi Panchak, I'm sure there are people from Douala.
Anyway, they'll be there.
Yeah, they'll be there. We also have art exhibition. These people who paint and all, like. We also have fashion meets. It's like something the models do for these companies. They want to, something they'll do.
Like it will be an expose.
Yeah, yes, like an expose. Yeah, exactly. There is also going to be an award ceremony, and there's a red carpet show.
All right. Yeah. Probably after that, what next? Because probably that is what should be interesting also at this particular. After that, what happens with those you're working with?
We have been working.
All right.
Despite the launch that is coming, we have been working.
Okay.
People still come in who want to use them. Like for example, music artists. They want to do their videos and they need vixens. They come to them, pay them, and use them.
And use them.
Yeah. So I can just probably direct them that when you go on set, don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this.
All right. You're out to train them, and probably other companies that may want a brand ambassador for their companies, they can go for them because they have the skills, they have the talent, and so they can afford them. That was it for today's edition. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Wish you the best anyway for Sunday.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mangavena Shoes, wish you a happy weekend. Hope to have you on Monday.
I'll be there, Vanessa.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's edition. It has been a pleasure. All in a bit to encourage the youths that it's not all about the certificate. Go for a training and make yourself financially stable and independent. See you on Monday, God willing. Do stay tuned to DBS Television. We'll be right back.